UFC 310 is this Sunday, and this is my pick and the reason why I think these fighters going to win this Sunday. Rattling off on the main event of this card. Alexander Pantoja versus Kai Asakura. I think Pantoja is a much more complete fighter. Kai Asakura haven't fought at 125 for a few years now, and we all see most fighter who coming from Ryzen such as Manel Cape all have a trouble in adapting in the octagon itself. I think with the completeness of Alexander Pantoja, it will be a UD win for Alexander Pantoja. Moving on to the co-main event of this card, the main event of the people. Shavkat Rakhmonov, an undefeated fighter, versus another undefeated fighter, Ian Machado Gary. This is a hot pick. The more favorable pick will most definitely be Shavkat, but I think Gary have a slight edge in this fight. Last fight for Shavkat is last December. Ian Gary is a much more active fighter, and we know he is a more complete, as you can see, versus Jeff Neal, versus Neil Magny, and recently versus MVP. It's a 50-50, but I think because of the activeness, Ian Gary going to take this one. Moving on to Cyril Gane versus Volkov. This break my heart. I'm a huge Volkov fan, but Volkov is considered as a slow heavyweight. Cyril Gane, with his athleticism and very explosive footwork, I think he going to take another UD win for this one. But I wish Volkov can prove me wrong by playing the range game and take Cyril Gane footwork out by chopping down his leg. For the Bryce Mitchell versus Gracie, I think Bryce Mitchell will be a heavy favorite because Bryce Mitchell last fought, I think, earlier this year. Kron Gracie haven't fought for ages. And we all know Kron Gracie is a one-trick pony. It's just BJJ. And I think Bryce Mitchell high-level grappling can neglect Kron Gracie BJJ. For the opening fight on the main card, Chris Landwehr versus Du Ho Choi. I think Landwehr have a much better chance in winning this fight because Du Ho Choi have been hot and cold in the past few years, and he is a bit chinny. Landwehr have a heavy hand. This is going to be a banger of a fight. Put your money on Chris Landwehr all day. For the main event for the prelim, Reyes versus Smith. Obviously, Reyes all day by KO. Smith haven't been really good for the past few fights. Reyes looked fantastic versus Justin Jacoby on his last fight. I don't think Smith can chin Reyes, but I know Reyes can most definitely make a TKO out of Smith. For Luque versus Gorimbo, this is a hot take. Obviously, Luque is a much more famous fighter, but he been on a downward spiral, and Gorimbo just looked like a much more hungrier fighter. I don't think he will most definitely take this opportunity by strike and most probably either win by UD or finish him by ground and pound while Luque is chilling. For Evloev versus Sterling, this is another fight that broke my heart. I'm a huge Aljo fan, but I just think the high-level grappling of Evloev can neglect Aljo high-level BJJ as well. I hope Sterling can most definitely prove me wrong, as he proved me wrong when he fought with Cater. But at this fight, I think Evloev got eat. For the opening fight on the prelim, Brown versus Battle. I think Battle going to win. Brown have a bit of a chin problem and have been a bit hot and cold. Usually on the big stage, Brown tends to slight choke. For example, Brown versus JDM. So I think Brian Battle is on a hot streak, especially after his France performance. I think Brian Battle can take this fight on the third round by chinning Brown. And for the early prelims, the main event on the early prelims, Whiteman versus Anders. Anders is just a very athletic middleweight. Whiteman is an ex-champion. I think this fight perfectly suit for Whiteman to make a comeback again after the Santos fight. So yeah. For the Durham versus Vance, I'm not quite know both of them, but I know Durden has a good wrestling, quite high level of wrestling as well. And it's very hard to beat a high level grappler, especially a high level wrestler. So that's why I choose Durden for this fight. For the Chiesa versus Griffin fight, I think Chiesa going to take it by submission. I know Griffin have a bit of an issue with his grappling, especially if you look at his fight versus Covington. So I think the safe bet on this fight will be Michael Chiesa. For Guida versus Hooper, Hooper have been looking fantastic at light heavyweight. Guida have been hot and cold and currently on a losing streak. I think once Hooper fully fill out his frame, he will be quite of a trouble at lightweight. So yeah, I think Chase Hooper gonna beat Clay Guida. And finally, on the light heavyweight, I won't even try to pronounce his surname, but the light heavyweight most definitely going to beat the heavyweight, because most heavyweight is not very athletic. It just have heavy hands. We see this fella beat Chris Barnett, if I'm not mistaken, his last fight. A much more athletic light heavyweight who going up versus a pure heavyweight. Most definitely a light heavyweight that going up to the heavyweight going to beat those non-athletic heavyweight. So yeah, this is my pick for UFC 210.